this is about supplies. So this is called pained colors, and the way that they have been put in there, there's a special binder that when it's dry, then it remains like a little cake, and as soon as you wet it, then that's when you get your colors. And if you are like me and you use this a lot, then when one of the paints become empty, like this one, for example, what you can do is you can take the paint, the little rectangle, the little pane, you can take it out and buy a new one and replace it. Or you can buy a tube of paint the same color and squeeze it out in there and instant color into your little travel box. Very useful. As you can see, there are certain colors that I hardly ever use. This is green, two different greens, and this is I think this is black and white and brown and yellow ochre. So I hardly ever use these colors. But this is very convenient for traveling, and it has this little area here that serves as a palette when you put it like this. And there is a little container here that you can put it on the side like this, and that's where you put your water. And then you have this little extra space here also for mixing colors. So this was a Winsor Newton half pane. This is a nice little kit that I really like. But sometimes when I travel and I don't know if I will really have time to paint, but I want to make sure that if I do, I have my little kit. Then I bring this. This is a small little thing. It's got a cover like this, that when you open it up, then you can mix your paint in here. And it's got a little brush. This little brush is a little crummy brush, but anyway, you can still use this, or you can bring a brush on the side. So this is very light. It's got some colors that, not the colors that I usually use, but it works. And so when I went to Italy, and I didn't know if I would paint every day, I always had this in my pocketbook. And with it, I had my little book like this. And I could do little drawing or little painting. See, I did the drawing of the beach, and then I did the painting of the beach. So you can do stuff that's quite interesting, even with a little kit like this. Or there's this little format, same little things. In my studio, which is tubes of paint. So this is what I buy. These colors are professional colors for the most part. And in this case, I bought the Winsor Newton colors, but Winsor Newton also has more of a student grade, which is like this, slightly different in terms of presentation. So these silver tubes are more professional grade. This is more a student grade, and the student grade works really well for this class. I also sometimes buy Daniel Smith extra fine watercolors. Has a lot of pigment in it, but it's extremely expensive, and so is this. I find that Grumbacher Academy is a good brand for, it's in student grade, but it's a very good brand. It's got a lot of pigment in those tubes, and for the size, it's pretty good quality. All right, so that is what I wanted to show you. Let's stop the share. Is there any questions about the paints or any of the explanation that I provided in this mini video? Okay, so we're going to move on to what we're going to do today. And today what we're going to do is we are going to work on a drawing of a lighthouse. in preparation to paint this this drawing. So if you have a sketchbook, now's the time to take out your sketchbook, and you can take out your pencil. If you have a kneaded eraser, you can use that. If you don't, you can just use a regular eraser. And I'm going to show you how we can draw this. And then once we have drawn it, then we will transfer it onto watercolor paper to paint it. Now we're going to draw this onto our sketchbook. After we're done drawing it onto the sketchbook, we're going to trace it. If you have tracing paper, that'd be convenient. If you don't have tracing paper, you can just simply redraw it, but this time onto your watercolor paper. This is a little crooked. I should try to make it more straight. That'll work better. Okay, here. This is good. Okay. So my paper is 9 by 12, and on this 9 by 12 paper, we're going to start by drawing the. Actually, we're going to start by drawing the horizon line. So this here, it's like, I'm going to go like this. This part here is like rocks, and this lighthouse has been built on this set of rocks. And here at the bottom, what we see are crashing waves. Can't you hear it? They're like shh, shh. All the spray that crashes on these nice rocks. And then so we have a lighthouse that is kind of like a little cone with a little hat that looks like a little triangle. And it has a house with a few windows. There's a couple of birds here. So this drawing is fairly simple, and it's shapes that we know. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to draw the horizon line where the rocks meet the sky, which is about here. So in terms of the height on the paper, to have a strong composition, it's always better to have the horizon line be either 1/3 down or 2/3 down, or like 3/4 down. So it's important that it's not in the middle. So I'm going to do it like about here. For me, it's easy because I have my other papers right here. So it's going to be about this height. And the shape of it, it could be like a wave like this. It could be straight. But since there are rocks, so I'm going to build those rocks like this. Let's say I have a rock like this, and then my other rock one right here. So it's approximately the same as this, but maybe I'm going to change it a bit like this. You can imagine it's actually a little high. I think that on this it's a little lower, and I'm going to lower it because I prefer if it's 1/4 up. So I'm going to just make it a little lower like this. Can you see this? Yes. And then this will go like this. And this will go like this. Okay. So this is a little bit better. So I invite you to do the same thing in your sketchbook, following the different steps to draw the lighthouse. Well, you don't have to make a mistake like I did, though, I'm having to erase it. But all right, so here we go. So I have my rocks like this. And so I've put my rocks, and now I'm going to add the lighthouse itself. So the lighthouse, you can think that of it as a cone, or maybe it's like a glass of water, but it would be upside down. So at the top, the lighthouse is a little skinnier than at the bottom. So the way to do this is, and the lighthouse itself should be a little bit to the left, not completely in the middle. Just in terms of composition, it makes it more interesting. So I'm going to go to the left here and do my lighthouse. So something like this would be interesting. And then the other wall would be like this. There, this is pretty good. Actually, this wall should be a little bit more inclined like this. This is going to be better. So now I have the lighthouse. I didn't do the top of the lighthouse on purpose. I want us to do one step at a time. So these walls, they should be fairly straight. If I were to put my pencil on top or right next to it, then the line should be straight, although it leans a little bit like this. The wall on the other side leans a little bit this way, but if I put my pencil next to it, it should be fairly straight. I hope that makes it clear. So here the top was not quite straight. Another way to verify that your line is straight, you can take a brush and put it next to it. Oh, it's pretty good. Next to it, pretty good. You can also look at it, look at your book, take your book and look at it like this. See, is it straight? Can you see? Oops, there's a little bit of a dip here. So I can correct that, and same thing with the other one. So you can do that. And actually, I think that if I look at it, I think this wall is a little bit too much inclined compared to this wall. So I'm going to make this wall a little bit more like this. I think that will make it more interesting. Another way to verify that your drawing is pretty good would be to try to fold your paper and see if the two lines meet, or you could trace, use a tracing paper, and then if you fold it in the middle and the two lines meet very well, that's good. If they don't really meet, that means one line maybe is too inclined compared to the other one. So anyway, by now, I'm hoping you have also drawn your two walls. And on top of these two walls, we're going to put a little triangle to give it the shape of the little hat or the roof of the lighthouse. Now, this roof has got to be centered in the middle of the lighthouse, the wall. So find your middle. For me, if I eyeball it, this is pretty much the middle between, between here and here. This is pretty much the middle. So I'm going to put a very light line that is completely vertical. And this is where I'm going to put the tip of my roof. So now I have this. Now this line, I didn't mark it very dark because I will erase it. But right now I put a little dot right here because I know this is right smack in the middle of my wall, my two walls. And that's where the tip of my roof will be. Now, the other step is to put a very light pencil horizontal line like this. So this line, I'm going to put it closer to the camera. So this line is completely horizontal. This line is completely vertical. If this is not vertical, erase it and redo it. If this is not completely vertical, horizontal, erase it and redo it. And it extends beyond the wall on this side, extends beyond the wall on this side. The portion that goes, that is this portion here, this part that goes outside the wall should be equal to this portion of the line. So this width, maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's a 1/4 inch. So it should be a 1/4 inch here. If you have a 1/2 inch, you should have a 1/2 inch here. Oops. Okay. So now we have a line that goes like this, and we have a line that's horizontal that exceeds, you know, the width of the two walls. It exceeds here and it exceeds here. So now I do a straight line that goes from this dot here to this. If you want to use a ruler, you can, but it's always better to draw, hand draw like this. So I have this line here, and I make this line here. So now I have my roof. And at this time, it's a flat roof, but I know it's symmetrical. That's very important, because if your roof is not symmetrical or it's not centered on your tower, it will look funny. Excuse me. Once you have done this, you can also, like I have here, I have like a little ball on top. Sometimes there's a weather vane on top of a lighthouse. So I like putting like a little topper, just a little circle like this, makes it interesting. And now I have my little roof. The roof is still flat because we have a horizontal line here. But now what we want to do is we want to form this here. We want to form the bottom of the roof line into what's in front is like a frown, and what's behind it is the smile. So this is how I do this. So this oval, this ellipse or oval that represents the roof of the wall, I mean the bottom of the roof, sorry, not the roof of the wall, is what I do is I put a little mark that's maybe, I don't know, not even a 1/4 inch. Put a little mark here above my initial dot, and a little mark here below the initial dot. So I'm going to put it to the camera. So I put a little mark like this, and one like right here. So I have my horizontal line here, and a little bit above it, and the same distance below it, I put 2 marks like this. And then these marks are the marks that I'm going to join from the corner to the mark. Same thing here, from the mark to the corner. And I do the same thing below, like this. Like this. I'm going to put it back on the easel. And I have lots of lines. I'm just going to make it a little darker, just so you guys can see, even though it's back on the easel. And here, I'm not going to go past the wall, because once this is done, then my wall will go all the way to the roof line. And I can erase this. I can also erase this. And now see, I have a nice roof that is centered onto my tower. We have the roof, it's on, and we don't have this little balcony yet. This little platform here, it's like a little platform for the lighthouse keeper or any of the visitor to come and see the lighthouse. So this platform, we're going to proceed to draw this the same way we drew the roof. And to do this, we're going to first draw a horizontal line that is below the roof line. I would say maybe 2 inches below. I'm going to do it like around here. So I'm going to do a complete horizontal line. Like this. And make this, you don't make this too dark because eventually we're going to erase it. I'm making it pretty dark so that you can see it on the camera. Now, this line, oops, this line has got to be horizontal. I'm realizing mine is, it leans a little bit. It should be completely horizontal. And this is just the start of our little balcony. And once you have drawn this line, then take your eraser and just erase it. Make sure it's as wide as the roof. So if I put my pencil right here, then I know that whatever exceeds here needs to be erased. So see, it's about the same distance from the wall as the roof. Same thing on this side. Well, this one exceeds a little bit. So is this pretty equal? Yeah, that's pretty good. Maybe a tad longer. So this line is my initial guide for my balcony. And we're going to do the same way that we proceeded to do the bottom of the roof. We're going to do the same thing here. So from the middle line, I'm going to put a little mark just a little bit above, a little mark just a little bit below, like so. And then I'm going to have the corner meet the line and this corner meet the line, and same thing under. So what goes in front of the lighthouse is a frown. What goes behind the lighthouse is a smile. So I'm going to go like this from the corner to the line, the little line in the middle. And same thing on this side. Then same thing behind it. I mean, below it, I should say, like so, like so. Once I have this, if I'm happy with the shape, then I can erase the line in the middle. This line here. And just like we did with the roof, now I also want to erase this part of our little platform that is actually behind the lighthouse on the other side. So now we have a pretty good ellipse, and these are pretty well formed because we did the whole line. Now, this needs a little ramp. So this here is like a little ramp, and these lines on either side are completely vertical. This one and this one. So that's where we're going to put next. So little line is completely vertical. Make sure you make this vertical. Yeah, maybe it's a 1/4 inch. I don't know. You can just make it about this big. So now these two should be the same height. You can put your pencil, make sure that they're the same height. And when you put your pencil, you can also put a little mark where the pencil is, or if you prefer, you can just put a little line like this. That's, you know, I made my line straight across, completely horizontal, because I'm going to put a little mark above it. And that will go from the corner to the mark. And same thing here. Once I've done that, I can remove my horizontal line. Now I have a nice little balcony with a ramp, or a railing, I should say. That's in front. And this railing goes around, so it's coming in front and it goes around. So the same thing that we have this here, then we also have this here that goes like this. Same thing here. We have this. And this ramp has, you know, all this railing. It's got all these vertical railing that will get closer and closer as it gets to the corner. There. Now I have this. So far we haven't done any shading, but we've worked on the different elements that we need for the lighthouse. Any questions from anyone? Please don't hesitate. Unmute yourself and ask your question. All right. Now it's time to add the house. So the house it's basically, if we ignore the roof to start with, the house is a rectangle. So that's what we're going to add. So the right wall is just a vertical line. Maybe I won't make it that high. I won't make the house so high this time. So vertical line over here. It's pretty much, you know, in between the lighthouse and the end of the book. And if I'm going to draw this, then I'll just do a completely horizontal line right here. So if you'd like to use your ruler, you can. But drawing is always more interesting when it's freehand. When it's freehand drawn. So once you have this rectangle, then you have the structure of the house. And all you have to do is add your roof. Now the roof exceeds the house. See how it exceeds the house? It's a little bit like it goes over, because oftentimes a roof has an overhang. So that's why. So it goes a little beyond the end of the wall. And the top of the roof is slightly higher than the bottom of the roof. So maybe, I don't know, 1/2 inch. Or maybe it's 1 inch. This is also completely horizontal. So you can do this line. You can probably do it all the way to here. Like all the way to here. And then you meet the two. Now we have a roof. Now I see this roof, this roof line is not completely horizontal, so I'm just going to adjust it. So now I have put my house, and I have the wall, and I have my roof, and I'm going to add a little chimney on top. A little chimney is like it's just a little rectangle that is above the roof. Voila. And I can put a door and the windows. And this time I'm going to put a bigger door, because I think that the door I put here, the people can actually have to bend in half in order to get through the door. I think my door was a little bit too low. I'm going to put my door this time this big, and I'm just going to put 2 windows. Windows are just rectangles. Voila. Maybe the windows they have panes in them. I want to make it interesting. Or maybe the door has a little window in it, or maybe it has a door handle. All right, so now I've built my house. I mean, you can put as much detail as you'd like on this house, or as little detail as you'd like. Once you guys have completed this house, then we will move on to doing some shading. So on this lighthouse, we have a very much lit up side for the lighthouse. And on the other side is the shaded area of the lighthouse. So that means that the sun is coming from up here and hitting the lighthouse like this. And it's hitting the roof here. And the roof is casting a little bit of a shadow in the top of the wall here, but the rest is completely lit up. And actually here, this little platform is also casting a little bit of a shadow. It's hard to see, a little bit of a shadow. It could have been maybe a little bit more of a shadow here. And then on the other side is where all the shade is. So we're going to start by helping the shape of this roof that is completely in the dark. See, this is under the roof, this portion here, and same thing here, as well as under the platform, it's all very dark. So we're going to give it a very dark shade. If you have just an HB pencil, it will be sufficient for what we need to do here. But if you have a pencil that is maybe a 2B or a 6B or 8B, B is for bold. That means it will be a lot darker. Then I suggest that you use that. But I'm just going to use my HB, which will do. And I'm going to start by darkening what's under the roof right here. So this will give shape to my roof. This area, as well as this area here. And I have the same thing under this little balcony on either side. This side and this side. And also, this balcony has a little, the bottom part, see, it's got a little width. So the platform is not, it's not completely skinny. So I'm going to also, under the platform, give it a little width. Not the whole thing, but just a little bit of a width like this. There. But now we have given shape by doing this sheeting like this. And then the next step is to give shape to our overall cone, because this cone is like this. And because the light is hitting from this direction, that way, then all that's on the left will be darker. And to do this, I'm going to use my HB again, but I will start by putting very little pressure on my HB. Now, if you have like a 4H pencil, you could use that. H is for hard. So when you use a 4H, you will have a lighter finish to your pencil marks. But I'm just going to use my HB and make sure I don't put too much pressure. And on the left of my lighthouse, I'm going to put some shading. Now, the more I come over to the right of the lighthouse, then the lighter the color would be. So as I come around here, so it gives it a little bit of a like a roundness. And the same thing is true on the wall, on this between the roof and the balcony. So the same thing applies. So that'll be our first step. Right. And so once you've done all of this like this, then we're going to do the roof. But the roof, the overall color of the roof is, we're going to say the roof has a darker color than the lighthouse. So that's why on this side where it's darker, it's going to be even darker than the darkness of the lighthouse. So this is why this is darker. But the same will apply to the roof that is like a little cone. So the darkest dark will be here on this side, although it's still not going to be as dark as under. And this dark will be all the way alongside like this. And then as it comes around, it will get lighter. But the roof itself is not necessarily white. And so therefore, does not necessarily go all the way to white on this side. But if you do like me and you make it a little too dark on the light on the right hand side, what you can do is you can use your kneaded eraser. And with the kneaded eraser, you mold it to the shape that you want. And I'm just going to make this a little closer to the camera. You can just press like this, and it will lighten your color just by pressing. See, that's what I like about the kneaded eraser. You don't necessarily have to erase, like this. You can just press, and it will just remove a little bit of lead. Then you can always go back on top. So now my roof has shape, and it looks like this. And now I can use this if I want to make it a little bit lighter, right on the line there. All right, so now I've done my roof. The little ball will be the same thing, dark on one side. And then the dot that we had put, doesn't need to have the dot so much anymore. All right, so now that we have shaped our roof and we have shaped the overall lighthouse, now what's important too is that under the roof, there's an additional shadow casted by the roof itself. So like this. And same thing under the balcony. So now we want to indicate those. Put that back here. So here, there's an additional little shadow that's casted like this. Kind of like even darker. And it's from the top, from the right to the left. Same thing here, from the right to the left. And if it's too dark, then you can always use your kneaded eraser to make it a little lighter. All right. Now my lighthouse is pretty good, except my balcony has almost disappeared because I've shaded my lighthouse. So it's an easy step to use your pencil again to redraw those railing that comes down, that come down like so. I'm just going to redraw them a little darker. And again, those railings, they will be further apart in the middle and closer as they come around like this, just because of perspective. So now I've redrawn these, as well as the railing itself. So. Okay. Ooh, now we're ready to draw the house. So it's still possible to move the roof line a little lower, which is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to draw it to here, and move this line like this. So I can erase this one because I thought it was a little too high. My roof was a little too low. And now I think my house looks, has a better shape like this. Yeah, I like this better. So this house, the roof of the house is the same darkness as the roof of the lighthouse. And, or in this case, on this painting here, I had painted it the same color as the rocks. But it's basically, it's a pretty dark roof, as well as the little chimney. So I'm just going to use my HB and make this a dark area. And because the roof has a little inclination, then maybe it's not completely the same darkness throughout. Maybe it's, you know, when you look at the roof of a house, sometimes it's, for some reason, there's a little bit darker in an area, lighter in some other area. Sometimes the shingles are not aging the same throughout. So anyway, but all in all, this is a pretty dark section of our drawing. Chimney. Okay, very good. Now the house, this house here is part of the lighthouse, so we can assume that it's a light color house, probably white. However, the sun is coming kind of sideways like this and hitting the lighthouse, and it's almost coming around to light the front, but it's not quite there yet. So there's a little bit of a gray, it's a little bit of a gray area on this house. So if you have a 4H or a 6H or even 2H, now would be the time to use it to gray out the lighthouse. I mean, the house of the lighthouse. I'm just going to use my HB and go very lightly over the whole thing, including the windows and the door, to just make it just a light gray. And actually, it's getting too dark already, but I'm going to use my kneaded eraser to make it a little lighter. Now, one thing that's important is that we indicate, because this roof has an overhang, so we have to indicate a little shadow under the roof. So the roof is pretty dark, but there is a little bit of a shadow here under the roof. I'm just going to indicate it like this. And this shadows a soft edge to the rest of this house, but this roof line should be pretty dark. All right, so I have this darkness here. Maybe my house could be a little bit lighter, so I'm going to use my kneaded eraser just to lighten it a little bit, like so. Then after I'm done with this, then I'm going to add the darkness of the windows and the door. So basically, the door is just going to be as dark as the roof. Let's say it's a dark green or dark blue door. And we could be fancy with the windows, but we're just going to make them dark as well. Let's say they're not home today, so there's no light inside. We're just going to make them dark rectangles. The reason we're taking all these different steps while we are drawing it is so that when we paint it, we're going to take this the exact same steps, and we're going to be able to paint it because we'll know our subject matter already. So now we have the house, we have the lighthouse itself, and all that we need is to add a little bit of sky and darken those rocks. So to darken the rocks, if you have a 2B, 4B, 6B, or like a darker pencil, now's the time to use it and just darken this whole area. So that's what I'm going to do now. And I'm going to put my book sideways because it's just easier. I'm just going to make it like this. This is going to be my rocks. If you don't have an 8B or 6B or something like that, you can still use your HB and do the same thing, and it'll be fine. You have a pencil sharpener. Good. It's now would be a good time to use it. Just switching pencil because my other one is well gone. All right, so now I have this, and you know, I can use my kneaded eraser to erase certain lines. Maybe this line's a little too sharp. I'm just going to make it softer. I can do that. Same thing here. And I mean, one more thing that we could do is we could indicate our sky using our pencil. I have another one here. And especially, see, when you do a watercolor, and if you have an area of the lighthouse that is lit up like here and here, then on this side of the lighthouse in the background, on purpose, I have done the sky a little darker than on this side. See, I went and I did the sky a little lighter, because this lighter sky against the dark part of my lighthouse, the shadow part, it responds well. It defines the lighthouse a little bit better than if I had put the similar tone as here on this side, because then I would potentially lose the edge. So we can do the same thing on the drawing. And so therefore here on this side, I'm going to put it my sky. And your sky does not necessarily need to have to go all the way to the bottom. But if you're going to put it on this side, it's better if it's darker than the roof. Like so. And then as you come around to the other side, then you want to keep it much lighter, like this. Nice. Okay. Any questions about any of this? So now that we have done all of the different sections, the only two things we haven't done is we didn't do the water here. We didn't draw the water yet. And we didn't do the two little birds here. I don't know if you can see the two birds. There are two little birds flying right here. So birds are pretty easy to do. Let's do that first. It's just two little semicircles like this. And then maybe he's flying with a friend. There. I didn't show you how to do the clouds here. Let's save that for when we paint it. Now the water here at the bottom. So I'm going to turn my book upside down to do the water. It's just going to be easier because otherwise the easel is in the way. So the color of the water will be a light color, so light gray. And this is what I'm adding right now. It's my water. I'm not being very specific as to how I'm drawing this. But the water is definitely lighter than the rocks because the rocks are usually pretty dark. And I'm actually going to make the rocks a little darker here using my 6B pencil. And so I'm just going to turn it upside up to show you one more time. So this is the rock or the rocks. This is the water. And now the water is splashing on with waves onto the rocks. And therefore, the rocks don't have a sharp edge like this. I have to use my kneaded eraser to create the effect of the crashing waves onto the rocks. So that's what I'm doing here. And when you're doing this, at some point you have to fold or knead your eraser. That's why it's called a kneaded eraser, to get some clean area of your eraser. Because if you don't fold it, then it will not erase anymore because it's full of lead. So see now, my rocks are kind of like, they're kind of covered a little bit with the foam. I don't know if you can see that very well. So this is the water, this is the way the crashing waves, and then it just splashed onto the rocks. And of course, it's very abstract. I realize that. But then we can do the same thing here in this section. So first, water. The water does not necessarily have a white wave all the time, but this one really splashed really high over here, like so. So that's why this is like this. And I need my eraser. There. All right. So now I have my two waves and then the water at the bottom. And there's a lot of work that could still be done on those rocks to shape them and form them, and maybe some are darker than others. But for right now, we'll just say that this is good. When we paint it, we'll have fun with doing wet on wet techniques. And we will also here in the background, we will do a graded wash for the sky, and we'll have fun with giving shape to our lighthouse. Homework. Homework is to trace your drawing and transfer it onto watercolor paper in preparation for painting in next week.